I've got time for one more call here, and I'm going to go to Donna from Henderson, Kentucky. There we go. Donna, you are on. How you doing there?
Hey, I'm enjoying the sunshine. It's really nice here in Kentucky.
Well, wonderful.
Yeah, well, thank you. And thank you for taking my call. I have a question. Hold on. Just a second.
Okay.
Okay, so I have been a Christian all my life. And I've even rededicated myself. But I go through spiritual warfare a lot.
And when you say
thoughts.
spiritual warfare, what do you mean? What are you specifically referring to?
Thoughts. Really, I call it spiritual because it's really bad thoughts. Really, really bad thoughts. And it's not really pertaining to people. It's pertaining to God and all of that. And I have been through counseling for it. It doesn't. It's not all the time, and sometimes it just pops up, and then I'm like humbling myself. I'm crying and asking God for forgiveness.
So you have intrusive thoughts that you are not able to get rid of easily. Is that what you're saying?
No, right. I mean, and yeah, it's bad. I sometimes I can go do something and I can get my mind off of it, and sometimes it's so bad that it's just like one thought right after another, and I just holler out and I just pray, and just ask God to take it away from me. And I don't know if it seems like in the past when stuff like this happened, something was going to happen that wasn't going to be bad; it was going to be good. But it just comes and goes, and it's so draining. I read my Bible. I say Bible verses. I say, "Get behind me, Satan." I'm a child of God. Leave.
Well, let me ask you this. Let me ask you a question, then I'm going to turn this over to Mylan and Becky. Is there, in your past, is there either a specific trauma or were your parents, were they negative? Did they insinuate or say pretty crummy stuff around you? Tell us about that. Either a trauma or. Go ahead.
So I think it all really started. I didn't have a really good childhood or any of that stuff. But I can't. That's the way I was raised and stuff. And I don't have any. I became a stronger person because of all of that. I wouldn't be where I'm at if it hadn't been for what I went through.
What is all of that? What does all of that mean?
Well, I had a dad that was an alcoholic, a non-functional alcoholic. There was my mom. Basically, she had to take care of us, and so when I was younger, I started bullying. I was a bulimic. I started in bulimia, or whatever you can't say that. I've dealt with that all my life. I've had counseling all my life. I've been on medication before with all that. And it seemed like it got really bad in 1983. And my husband at that time, we had to move to Texas.
Yeah.
And for like 6 months. But I met I had a good job there. I met the greatest people. They were really sweet and nice and kind. And then I came home, and I was okay. My job took me back because they gave me an extended leave of absence. And it started. And I do have a history, used to when I was younger. I dealt in tarot cards. I did, fortune telling and all of that. But
before you accepted Christ.
That up.
Before you accepted Christ, is that right?
No, I accepted Christ at 12.
Okay. Well, let me start with Mylan here and get some perspective on the kind of struggle that you're going through. Mylan?
Well, Donna, there's a lot of things that we're discussing here, and I'm going to be very brief. whatever the formula or how all this came into being, and the history of having an alcoholic dad, and then the difficulties of your childhood, and there certainly is spiritual warfare that is clearly a part of our world. But what I'm hearing from you is you have obsessive thoughts and you have intrusive thoughts. They just intrude.
So what do you mean by intrusive?
Well, they just walk right into your head and just live there. Yeah. They intrude.
Sometimes it does.
They don't knock on the door and say, "May I please come in?" They just, like they're home invasion robbers. They just run right into your head, and then you obsess on them. You think about them over and over and over and over again. And so, what I'm going to suggest is there are certain medications that help slow down the obsessing, intrusive thoughts, and rumination. Where we sit and just go over a thought over and over and over and over in our head. And then we go through a ritual then of guilt and prayer and confession and the whole thing just then starts all over again. We need to pray and we need to ask God for protection, but I used to be more obsessive in my thoughts. I had a lot of intrusive thoughts, and I got on the right type of a medication that helped slow all that down, and it's not there anymore. So, Becky, what would you add to that?
I think that it helps to discover the patterns. You're saying, Donna, that this doesn't happen all the time, but when it hits, it really hits hard. And I think it would be helpful with a counselor to really kind of connect the dots of when this is occurring. And then you begin to create different habits along with medication and, what you're talking about too, Mylan, to disrupt the pattern. And that can be everything from, there's an old way of doing this in therapy. We call it thought stopping. And you could put a rubber band around your wrist and you snap that wrist and then you replace that thought with some other thought that will disrupt that habit, that pattern. And there's some neuroscience that connects that activity, which seems so basic and so simple, but it's going to take some repetitive, which is ironic because the thoughts can be repetitive, to disrupt repetitive habits to disrupt the process. I also would encourage you, I know we've said this 1,000 times, but I can't stress it enough. You need to be in a group in order to find those connections so that you're not doing this on your own, Donna. And it can be everything from a life recovery group or, even a anxiety recovery group.
And I'm very glad that you called. I'm going to send you a Restoration Bible. I'm hoping and praying that something we've said is helpful. A lot of times, well, first of all, I want to say this. It's all spiritual warfare. Satan uses everything with everybody. But sometimes we have some spiritual symptoms that have a psychological solution to them. Many times there are psychological problems that have spiritual solutions. But I think you have to explore every avenue.